was doing last meeting.
So I just put in the streaming stuff and I didn't get a response this time. So it says stop live streaming, so presumably we're live streaming now.
We are, yes.
Okay, great. Well, that's fine. It's working. That's all I care about.
Yeah, that's good. We can trim it later. It's fine.
Hi.
Hi, Christina.
How are you?
Good to see you. Good.
Oh.
It sounds like we won't have Linda with us today. Hi, Kathy. Linda had some other engagements, so I'm sorry to say she won't be here, but I'm assuming that we'll still have Mr. Harper with us. So we may need to wait another minute or so. I didn't hear anything from him specifically saying he wouldn't be able to join. So I'd love to have a couple of us all be able to put our heads together while we work through our points discussion.
Do we know if Evan will be here?
I also think Evan will be here. I'm hoping. I think this time worked better. Did you hear anything from him, Jerry, saying that this would not work for him time-wise?
I didn't hear from him, but Kathy usually handles the scheduling parts of this, but I mean, we talked at the last meeting that this date and time was sort of...
Yeah. Let's just give it another minute or so.
In terms of voting on proposals, how many task force members need to be here? Is it 4?
To be a quorum, you have to be 4 for 4.
The only person I heard from was Shannon, who had to cancel because of a medical issue. So we don't have an attorney here today.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Do we need one?
I thought it was just over half of the people present, but I think that may be based on a 7-member body.
Well, Michael or Evan should show, right?
Yeah. So, and usually Michael's a little bit late. Okay. Well, can we just at least practice getting a screen share going if that's okay? And then also, I guess before I get started, did you hear of any public comment that was submitted, or are we good to just start our work session?
Kathy, so you're giving.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna just hang out with us.
I'm actually really surprised to see my face up here. Usually I'm just a disembodied voice here, so.
It's nice to see your face.
Yes.
Instead of just yeah, but if I had known, I would have dressed up a little more.
Well, I like your quilt. Is that a quilt?
Oh, it is. Yes. Yes, that was a gift some years ago. Yes.
Dylan, do you need anything else before we kind of get started here?
Just as soon as we're ready to start, just make sure you do the start recording button.
Okay.
Well, I think we could maybe at least call the meeting to order and just say who's here and who we're expecting to see, and then
sure. Let me hit record then, if you don't mind. Just
okay, that's great. Okay.
We are recording.
All right, thank you. So I'm Nicole Dawson. Thank you so much for being here. Let's call our meeting to order, and we'll welcome everyone. I don't know if we want to do a roll call for this one, or if we can just say hi, Christina. All right, and thank you so much, Kathleen, for being here to speak about your comments. So we'd love to hear your comments.
So are we ready now?
I think so. Is everyone okay with hearing from Christina and then, or to hear from Kathleen and then go ahead and get started? Okay, thank you.
Sure, okay, give me a second here. Okay. Well, first, I want to just say that I've had some difficulty locating information about the task force's work since the end of December. I'm not quite sure where to find documents. If I want to review past meetings, I can't easily find them on YouTube, and it's been a little frustrating because actually I've tuned in, but I haven't taken close notes of your discussions, and then I can't quite remember what you've done. And so partly for that reason, I'm kind of unclear about the specific changes you've made to the proposals that you put forward on December 30th. I know you've been talking about them, but I don't know where they are exactly in the process. And Christina helped me get access to a couple of documents that I reviewed for today's meeting, but one was a set that were passed on December 30th, and another was a set that were outstanding. And it's not really clear to me how much the ones that have passed have been amended in your sessions over the past couple of months, or whether you've revisited many of the outstanding ones. So I am just slightly not clear on exactly where you are with the work. And I just wanted to mention that because, you know, it could be that some of the things I'm saying are a bit out of date. Okay. But in terms of your process, we in the Westland Community for Police Reform, we just had a meeting yesterday where we talked through the upcoming, or talked generally about both the process and some of the substance for the upcoming police union negotiations. And I really want to stress the importance of the time factor vis-a-vis this upcoming labor negotiation process, the time factor with regard to your work. And I have a bit of lack of clarity about exactly how much of what you recommend might have to be subject to bargaining. It's not always clear to me what does and what doesn't, but to the extent that they will be subject to bargaining, it's very important that they be submitted promptly and that the city council and the city manager act on them as soon as possible, so that the city's bargaining team has a very clear sense of what the city decision makers want prioritized in the bargaining session. I do want to stress that because the time is a bit of the essence with regard to not everything you're doing probably, but some really key issues. And you might be aware that bargaining starts on April 19th. And I think the clock has already started ticking on their timeline for bargaining. In terms of, and so, yeah, so I want to first really urge you to conclude the work on many of your recommendations, particularly those related to a permanent oversight board, to transparency and public access, to information and records, as well as to discipline. I think those all might be subjects of bargaining. And on the other hand, I also want to take this opportunity not only to address the task force, but to urge the city council and the city manager to act on them as soon as possible, because the bargaining team needs that kind of signal about what the priorities are. Now, in terms of the substance of some of your recommendations, I want to draw attention to a few issues that may have dropped off the recommendations that were passed on December 30th, although some of them were part of this, kind of outstanding list of a longer list of concerns. But I think they're all issues that might be relevant to the upcoming collective bargaining session. And the first is related to the authority of any permanent civilian oversight body to make decisions about the discipline of officers in cases serious enough to have warranted an external investigation. And as I read the proposal, or at least the one passed in December 30th, I did not see any specific reference to the authority of an oversight body to make disciplinary decisions, although I know there's been some talk among the task force members about a discipline matrix. And I really think that the oversight board should have the power to do so, at least, as I said, in serious cases. It is important to note that any discipline imposed on a police officer by an oversight board still has the possibility of being appealed through an arbitration process. So it isn't necessarily, absolutely final. So that's one. The second is ensuring that the Civilian Oversight Board has the authority not only to oversee misconduct and investigations and those issues, which I think should be its primary task, but also to review and recommend changes to the police mission, to the police policies and procedures, preferably to ensure that the policies are tailored to West Lynn's specific needs and don't over rely on boilerplate policies promoted by organizations like Lexipol. Some of those boilerplate policies are, kind of deliberately vague in order to give police maximum protection. And a third substantive issue that may or may not have been dropped is just maximum transparency and public access to any audit reports, to investigative reports, to disciplinary decisions, to tort claims and other litigation and things like that. I think those are all very important things that I'm not sure where they stand vis-a-vis your recommendations right now, but I think that they are all relevant to the bargaining process. And so I ask you to give them consideration in your recommendations. There's a bunch of other things we'd like to see too that I think might fall outside of your purview, like body cameras. And I think you're not necessarily looking at that kind of stuff. You're looking mostly at the oversight board, a permanent oversight board. But, there's a number of things that we would really like to see be part of this. And I'm getting nervous about, not missing the boat, since I understand, and Evan could reinforce this if he were here. Is he here? No. Things I brought up early on, that it's hard to put those issues on the table, down the road in bargaining. So that's it. So that's all I want to say for today.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I agree. This is kind of these matters are exigent at this point. If the bargaining is starting in 2 weeks or a week or so, and we're here, and there are certainly things that we need to be bringing up to our city voices to be able to bring to the table. So
Okay.
so thank you for bringing up those issues. I absolutely agree. The disciplinary matrix that we've been talking about, it would be wonderful if we could just kind of copy paste out. It would be wonderful if we could just kind of copy paste. Let's use one of these cities' discipline matrices, and possibly insert it into our own WLPD. But those things are all going to have to be considered heavily. And we're almost out of time to make a recommendation on a specific, format for that discipline matrix. I agree that we do also need to bargain the changes to policy and being able to have a voice in that. And I think when we had made some comments on, maybe selecting an auditor who could have a nice yearly transparent report that would go out and be on a website for viewable to the public about discipline or litigation. So we've been talking about that at least vaguely, but I think this is our work session at this point where we're going to kind of go line by line down those outstanding suggestions, and a lot of these issues are actually represented, I feel like, in those outstanding suggestions. The last couple of months, we've just been kind of regathering and reframing, and we had some outside help from other authorities, from Eugene and Nicole. So now we're just kind of getting down to the wire, and I think this is our opportunity to just pedal to the metal and get through it and make our recommendations final.
Great, thank you.
Sherry?
I let someone into the room who just has a phone number. Is it Michael or Linda? Caller.
Mystery
Clear.
caller. Would you mind unmuting yourself, 503? I don't see actually any kind of speaker or mute button on 503.
It's
not
not
sure if they
muted,
did.
but I heard some noise and I thought it might be Michael or Linda. We
Hey,
can
Jared, can you hear me
proceed.
now?
Is that Michael?
Jared? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm so
Okay,
sorry,
perfect.
everyone. I'm in I hate WebEx, whatever this format is in regards to Zoom meetings. So I will do the telephone for the next 20 minutes, and then I'll be on the computer. Thank you so much, everyone.
Michael, so glad you can make it.
All right, thank you. Hey, by the way, I might as well share. In regards to negotiation, one of my biggest issues is there has to be a line item that shares that they will accept the recommendations from the board. I don't know how that's written in the contract, but that's across the country. There has to be somewhere in there to say they have to comply or work within the Community Board Act format.
When you say are you saying when we would have the police oversight bodies suggesting like a disciplinary action that there would be like at least a response for why they would or would not go with that, or you're saying they would have to take the disciplinary recommendations, for example, from the oversight committee?
I would say they have to take the oversight committee's recommendation. I don't know how that could be written, but
I think, yeah, that would definitely have to go to bargaining too, though. I think that'll be
definitely
a bargaining issue. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So Jerry, if you want to let me off, that's fine. I'll just listen and I can get other things done while you're in the background here. Okay.
Thanks, Kat.
Yeah, good to see you all. Good luck.
Thank you. Okay, Jerry.
I'll work with Dylan on how that gets done, but
Okay.
in the meantime, we can move on with the meeting.
All right. Well, before we start going line by line, does anyone else have any other updates or concerns before we go over the outstandings? I think we have a lot of substantive discussion to cover in the outstandings. So Jerry's going to be scribing for us, folks, if everyone's okay with that. So then we could just focus on actually discussing and none of us have to go through technical hoops. And he's going to be screen sharing. Are you going to be able to scribe and screen share, Jerry? He's facilitating. He's our Aaron. He's our Aaron Ruff. Okay. Okay. And let's see. I think at this point, we can all, Christina, Evan, and Michael, good, you're not on mute. Members, I think it's fine to go ahead and take yourselves off mute so we can just have discussion. If everyone else is comfortable with that, that's fine. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anyone if they're raising their hand. So if people could just speak up, I think that would be the easiest way to do it. All right, so I'll just, if it's easiest, I'm not sure if you can see your screen, Michael, or not, but I'll go ahead and read each of these points. We have the first one struck. It was about, go ahead and just in keeping with the OIR recommendation. So that's struck because I think we're all on the same page that we've got the OIR.
That one was already passed.
Yeah, so I think that's fine. Okay, so the future committee members should be provided investigation materials from other agencies that are still underway to help provide further recommendations and oversight audit functions. I read that as being able to get information immediately that would be able to give us a better understanding to make recommendations in audit. So I think I don't think are we voting or are we not voting? Do you think, Evan, that we'd be all allowed to vote on this? We're looking for an attorney's input. Are we allowed to vote on this without having all of us visible to do thumbs up, thumbs down, and without having Linda?
This is not my legal opinion, but if we have a quorum, I think that we're perfectly able to ratify things and send them to council.
Okay.
So I support this. I would, if if you guys consider this a friendly amendment, I would just add to the end of this, to the extent allowable by law. So there may be reasons why information is not shared in the course of an investigation, which I think I mentioned last time, or not able to be shared.
I
Okay,
think that's a good addition.
thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, and I would be in support of this measure.
I second.
Michael, do you feel comfortable with it? And Evan says yes. Michael, can you hear us okay?
Oh, yes, I can hear.
Okay. Do you feel comfortable
Thank
with
you.
this, the second point of being able to have access to investigation materials while other agencies are
Yeah.
discovering them?
Yes, I agree.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. And then number 3 states the Permanent Oversight Committee should have a minimum of 7 civilians, all West Linn residents, and the majority of whom should be BIPOC. So I think I am in support of the number. I think we have a different point in this that discusses the selection and then addresses the diversity. So
And I'm open to some rewording on this. I just think that it's incredibly important that we have, significant BIPOC presence on the permanent body.
mhm.
Do we want to scroll to the other piece and see how they work together?
Sure. What was it? 22. I mean, can we scroll, Jerry? I feel like it was like further down. Yeah, it was 22. To ensure no bias occurs and to increase diversity of the group, oversight committee member application forms should be reviewed and evaluated utilizing predetermined selection criteria. Each question should be weighted, and application materials should state minorities are encouraged to apply and maybe given preference or bonus points. The top ranked applicants should be appointed or interviewed, and then scroll a little bit more if you could, Jerry. Okay, so for the open positions, and I think Evan, you had mentioned before it would be, and I agree with this, it would be nice to have this kind of a rotating open position, so there would be presence of experienced membership. So maybe say 2 opening positions every year or something. To further reduce systemic errors, names should be redacted from the application forms prior to scoring a review. All right, so that's where there's a comment on selecting for a diverse population and then using a weighted matrix for selecting the appointees. Does everyone feel comfortable with a matrix and then like some kind of bonus points being awarded to people with a diverse background?
I'm comfortable with that. I think
This is Mike Harper.
Mhm.
I feel uncomfortable with that. I mean, eventually we may not have that diverse board that we sought out from the beginning. So I don't think it would be appropriate to.
Which part, Michael?
Well, I mean, we can have a diverse board, but we don't have to put a bonus system involved with it because every board potentially could look different. We want to just make sure that we have a fair and equitable commission that will deal with these issues. Does that sound better?
I think the concern is making sure we get diversity onto the board, and like how do we get diversity onto the board while also blinding the applicants blinding the
Right.
yeah.
I mean, but you know, with the percentages of say, for instance, a specific culture in the city of West Linn, we may have problems. I don't think we should stop the process of having this board or commission if we do not, from the onset, discover or have applicants that are willing to complete the application to be on the board.
Right. So as in saying if we have no people of color applying for this board, then would we not convene the board? Like if we would still go forward with the board even if we did not have enough applicants who are of color?
Well, just like this commission, I think the city council can reach out to specific people. And I think we should reach out to, attorneys or, insurance professionals or government officials to make this board work. But at the same time, look at our mix of BIPOC and see if we can go forward.
Well, I think to Michael's point, if we eliminated the bonus points and kept the minimum or the majority in the first piece in number 2, it would kind of take care of itself. That, you'd pick the most, the majority of the board would have to be made up of 4 BIPOC members plus 3 others. So it would achieve the same outcome without the bonus points. If that's to Michael's liking, I don't know, but I'm throwing that out there as an idea.
Thank you, Evan. It's just that there's no commission or no board in the state of Oregon, that I've seen in my history that has that term. We don't want to, we're trying to do the best we can in regards to having a diverse board, but at the same time, we want to be professional in regards to how we market this opportunity, and it would be a marketing plan that could potentially be worked out without having, just you said bonus points or something like that in regards to what we're trying to achieve in regards to fairness and diversity.
Okay. Well, I would be comfortable. It lands on me in an uncomfortable way when I read that that wording, the bonus points wording, just because of being accused of getting somewhere because of affirmative action, blah blah blah. So that was my personal reaction to reading that, was discomfort as well. So I would be fine also striking that and then just making that the thrust of the application process, saying we would like to improve diversity in that committee, and then hoping that it'll work out well. And I guess if city council gets to the point where they see a bunch of applicants who are not of color, then maybe they would want to cast a wider net. I mean, does anyone feel comfortable with the committee coming from other local committee members coming from other communities outside of West Linn? Is that something? There was also the wording in there specifying only West Linn members, but how would people feel on this committee if someone came from, say, Oregon City or Lake Oswego or something like that?
I hadn't considered that. I don't know, my gut just feels like I'm more comfortable with it being West Linn residents, but I think the spirit of what I was trying to attempt with this is just to be, for this board to be actively anti-racist. And, it's not enough. In a community like ours, which is 90% Caucasian, I feel like we need to go out of our way, and however we need to do that to ensure that there's sufficient diversity on this permanent board.
I agree with Christina. If we don't have a consensus on number 2, I would move that we pass it on a simple majority if we have one. Those who are here.
Okay.
I agree.
Sounds like we have a consensus then. Good.
Okay, well, good. Yeah, I think I'm more comfortable with number 2 than I am with 22 or whatever number we were on, whatever number we were just on, 3.
So this is Jerry. Should I go up and tell me what edits you need me to make, please?
Okay. Can you scroll back to number 3 real quick? Sorry, Jerry.
Sure.
I'm good with it as is.
Okay, let's stick with it.
Yeah, I can't see it, but can someone read it?
Oh,
Sure.
The Permanent Oversight Committee should have a minimum of 7 civilians, all from West Linn residents. Oh, excuse me, all West Linn residents members, majority of whom should be BIPOC.
I agree.
Okay. it in. All right. So number 4, law enforcement whistleblowers should be able to report directly to the Permanent Oversight Committee, and protections for whistleblowers should be strengthened overall. That's a hands down vote for me. I mean, absolutely. So
I agree.
I also agree. I think it's in line with what we heard from the former auditor, the city of Eugene, as a system that works well too there.
Agree.
Christina, you okay? All right, great. The Permanent Oversight Committee should review and implement as needed recommendations made by the concerned citizens of West Linn, which is now police reform now, maybe, as laid out October 5th. And so I was wondering if we could, do you want to screen share that and go over that real quickly here? Not real quickly, I mean, it's a five-page document.
Dylan, can you help with this part, or?
Otherwise, I
Jerry,
can.
can you scroll down so I can see 4 a little? I can't see 4.
Oh, 4 was the whistleblowers?
Okay, so then we're talking about 5.
Yeah, we're talking about 5. Sorry if I misspoke.
Okay.
This was
Would it
the,
help if I
that's
made
fine.
would it
That's
help if I
not-
made the font bigger too?
Yeah, maybe. I think that was my screen share fail, not yours. Great.
Also, I don't know if we want to, just a suggestion, we could skip ahead to some that are just not ones that are relating to another document that we need to
Okay.
review to knock
that
some
sounds
out
good while we wait for
faster.
them to, okay. Sounds great.
You know, the
Okay.
other thing I would add is that the, you know, it's basically us suggesting to the future board to look over the document and to take what they need. So it's not as if we're obligating them other than to consider it.
That's true.
Well, there are some points that were made here that, at least in this document that came out, that do relate to the bargaining that's coming up in a week. So, I mean, we do have to kind of juggle what we're doing now, and our recommendations to the city, like urgently today. We have to kind of parse those out. Okay,
Dylan was
Go ahead.
able to pull up the recommendations, but we can go back to the Word doc if you prefer. Dylan was able to pull up the recommendations from October. To be
Great.
more-
Yeah, I think I see that now. Do you guys want to tackle this now? Is that okay, or do you want to?
I'm
Let's
open
do-
to either.
Okay.
Maybe we can give it 5 minutes and see how far we get and then reevaluate.
All right. So this first one does not really relate to us. This is more of the city function of like auditing the police department's budget. So that's not us necessarily right here. Implement a departmental equity plan to address racial, ethnic, and economic disparity in how the police interacts with the community. All right, so this probably would be a bargaining issue potentially, because that would require transparency for all the calls and investigations, right? And then self-initiated
Hiring.
contacts and hiring, yeah. The equity plan should set multi-year departmental objectives and benchmarks for achieving greater equity in hiring and retention of police officers. Adequate vetting of new hires at all levels for attitudes or behaviors that suggest bias. Training in areas such as procedural justice and implicit bias. This is definitely a bargaining issue. And job performance according to equity standards. Partnerships with equity-focused community organizations, internal, external communication strategies. So right. So this would be, you know, something. How do you feel like, Jerry, that are you guys already kind of stewing over these issues in preparation for bargaining? Because I don't want to do double work and voting on things if you guys are already, if you've already looked at this, digested this, and have a plan for bargaining on these subjects.
We've reviewed this document from October, but I can't speak to the specifics on everything here.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of issues for bargaining. All of it, all the above: body cams, education, 40 hours a year on, you know, de-escalation. Excellent points. And I think the police oversight body would be in an excellent position to say, you know, is this getting done? So, So I think these are excellent points for review, and I think if the council's already discussed them and thought about them, the city's already thought about these. And do you want me to kind of read through these and we'll all take a vote if we kind of accept this document and as whole, or are there parts of it we don't support? Evan and Christine and Michael, did you all have a chance to kind of look at this last fall? The
Yeah, I have read through the whole document, but not
Mhm.
recently.
Okay. I read through it recently and I think there's a lot of, I think the thrust is, having that transparency, making sure that the transparency to us, or us as the police oversight. Yeah, I'll say us, but I know it's not necessarily us. Okay.
Board.
For disciplinary action, and then also making sure to convey on that transparency of the community. That was a thrust I took from this, is making sure that there's some kind of report happening that's visible to us and visible to the community as a whole, so that trust is rebuilt, that there's a fair system at work, and that not only is our police officers held accountable all the way up to the level of chiefs, but also is the city held accountable in making sure that there's appropriate supervision of the police department.
And I'm in agreement. I'm in agreement that the number of legislative issues at the state are reviewing these. The majority of the issues we just spoke about. So my suggestion is, if they're voted for at the state level, do those same rules and laws trickle down to local counties?
Yes.
So they may not. So this may be a mute issue, but I think maybe we can just confirm it as the state goes through their legislative process.
Hey, Michael, I think that's a great question. I would just say there's a lot of issues. While there are a lot of issues that are being legislated at the state level, there are a lot of issues here that involve department policy, city equity plans, job descriptions, and other things that we have to do at the local level that are distinct from the state legislation. So if my preference on this would be, if we went back to the other page with as opposed to this October document, and said something like, we encourage the city to take into account the CCOWL recommendations from October and incorporate those that they're able to into their bargaining process, and leave it at that. And then also leave the other part about the future task force being able to implement these things that they want to at their discretion. So one, encourage the city to undertake these, the ones they're able to do, and two, allow deference to the future board to implement those which they see fit. That would be my recommendation.
Can we also, the biggest issue that wasn't achieved was the evaluations that are required for us to maintain these, the issues involved with our recommendations. So can we include the completions of all the evaluations that are required by the state?
I'm gonna go ahead and answer this because I don't see anyone else jumping at it. So yeah, we could. I think it might be more appropriate for us to do that in another recommendation in our larger document, to say, we'd recommend to the council that the police department maintain annual observations and make that part of the review for the police chief and the rest of the command staff. That's an expectation that we think needs to be centered.
I mean, they're required by the state, so a number of those evaluations are reviewed by state officials, not local citizens.
Michael, I guess maybe I don't understand. Are you talking about individual evaluations of officers and their job performance, or evaluations of something else?
Yeah, it's the evaluation of performance, but it's the individual department, the entire department.
Okay. Well, I would certainly support that.
If
That's something we want to add.
Yeah, if we had, I mean, we don't even have to add it because it's required, and Chief Mahoney can tell you what those evaluations are.
But are you suggesting though, and I would agree with this, that we have, annual transparent report that the evaluations are being done all the way up to the level of the chief?
Exactly, and make them accessible and available to the board.
Yeah, and then the board can make that reportable to the public. That I agree with that.
Exactly.
Chief Mahuna had his hand up for a moment. Did you want to say something?
Thank you.
No, I was trying to clarify, are we talking about departmental, like of the West, an evaluation of the West End PD, achieving these goals, or are you talking about individual annual evaluations, which we already do? Which one are we talking about?
The ones that we already do.
Okay.
Just ensuring that that is happening. And I think that's another point in the other document, that just ensuring that there is, and that's going to be publicly visible, that the city manager has an option, or is actually engaging in the evaluation on a yearly basis of the chief of police, and that's going to be, publicly viewable.
The
That-
part about
that's
publicly
one of the
viewable, the part about publicly viewable, I don't know about. You can certainly probably see mine because I'm not a protected employee, but evaluations can contain a disciplinary action that has been taken against the employee throughout the year. And so I'm not sure that would be releasable, but that would be a lawyer question.
That would be like a bargaining issue, I think. And
Yeah.
and that is specifically mentioned, the verbiage on that is mentioned in our other document.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, yeah. Okay, so let's just go ahead and toggle back. I agree with Evan in order to expedite the review of our points, that we can say, as we already had stated in the other Word document, that these Cowell recommendations would be considered by council, and then in relation to bargaining, and that our future presence can continue to review and make sure that there's adherence to those principles.
So that would be editing number 5. Is that correct?
Yeah, number 5.
Just a second, I'll pull that one up.
Thanks, Jerry.
One second, sorry. Dylan, I'm sorry. What tab is it under?
It's a P Drive Police Oversight Task Force.
I've got it open. I mean in
Oh.
WebEx. Literally, what tab? Audio, video.
You should just check the share button at the bottom.
There we go.
Okay.
Everyone can see it, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that our folks who have not had access to that document potentially had at least a moment where they could see it before we were approving it and saying, yes, we recommend this. And we had, we pulled up the document, so now everyone can see that we've read through it and we agree with its bulk, that it needs to be recognized in going forward in bargaining.
So on this, should I just write that we're approving it on today's date? Is that the action you want to take?
Yeah, I think I suggested adding one sentence, and I just want to make sure people are in agreement. Just that says, to the extent possible, we advise the city council to incorporate the suggestions laid out in the document into collective bargaining.
And maybe we'll end up with body cams out of it. That'd be amazing.
Be amazing.
Body cams of barking dogs. Got a report about a barking dog. No, that's great. I'm not you know, body cams are amazing. I'm not disparaging them. We're just very fortunate to live in a community where we don't often need to rely on their evidence.
And so I'll put approve this on 4.8. Is that accurate for everyone? Okay. And then as long as I had the floor for a second, number 2 was approved today as well with the addition of it to the extent allowable law. Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Correct.
I'm scrolling down to, I'm coming over to 9 since everything else was crossed out.
Thank
Number
you.
9.
Oversight entity to have some level of authority over discipline decisions. Details will depend on collective bargaining. Addresses historic problem of findings of misconduct and a lack of consequences imposed by police chief to deter further misconduct. I think this would be in relationship to the discipline matrix we talked about. So I don't know if we want to change the wording here, but oversight entity to have some level of authority over determining what goes in the decision matrix or for the disciplinary action. I think we can cross the last sentence.
Get rid of address this historic problem. We're striking that. Is that what you recommended or suggested?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Michael, did Michael hear that or did he say anything?
Oh yeah, I heard it. I'm trying to now I'm at my computer. I'm trying to get on the computer, but yeah.
Okay, so I just
Hey, I'm about to hang up on this other thing. I just need to make sure I can.
Okay. I guess we'll see your face soon then. Okay.
All right. Says you can join after your host admits me. I think I look cute.
We'll be the judge of that.
just give me a second on that. Okay.
All right.
There you are. Hey. Okay. Great.
Easy drive home.
There you are. Yep.
All right. Let me mute.
I can't find the strike through font right now, so I just made a note.
Okay. Well, I think the main issue is that we would have some level of involvement when sitting down to decide about the discipline matrix, and actually having authority in that and making sure it's we have a say if we think there's something that has been done that's very egregious, that the board has a way to actually have a voice in saying we, just as Kathy was saying, that we could have a voice in determining if something is deserving of termination, that then could be later arbitrated, but at least that we would be able to make that recommendation to city.
So is the goal to have the matrix? I mean, in an ideal world, would we have that matrix to present during bargaining next week, or is it enough that we, are tasking the permanent board with, participating in the creation of that matrix?
I think in an ideal world, we would have that ready today to say, could you bargain with this? And they could say, yes or no, we do or do not accept this. And then we could go forward with that. Because at this point, we're tasking the permanent body to come up with it, and then they have to go back to the bargaining table with it.
Right.
So just to come back to this part, strike the last sentence and we're voting to approve, right? Or there's a vote to approve.
That sounds good with me.
Jerry, do you know if there's already been someone in city looking at talking about the disciplinary matrix?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if Peter knows anything there.
I don't know if Evan's on the call, but I don't see him, but I know that that has to be a bargained item. What I don't understand is if we have to present one and then they accept it, or we get them to agree to having a matrix and then we create it. I work with the discipline matrix in the city of Portland, and there aren't enough meetings between now and where we need to have this in there to create that. That's incredibly, there's a lot of moving pieces to that, right? Kind of like a,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, if A, then B kind of a deal, and upward departures and mitigation. So it's a big document that there's no way we could create that now.
Do you think it would be possible to at least say, you know, if there's been a criminal violation or multiple uses of forces, like say 3 strikes you're out, or I mean, or 1 strike you're out? I mean, do you feel like as a police department you're already moving towards having a disciplinary matrix?
Um, I wouldn't go so far as to say we're moving towards having one. I mean, certainly criminal behavior is, you know, is not the norm, for example. So most of the stuff you're gonna be disciplined over is an officer gets into too many wrecks within 2 years. An officer doesn't turn on his body cam enough times or whatever. It's going to be the smaller, kind of more repetitive things that either upward departure or mitigate the discipline that has been proposed. I don't know if that answered the question or not.
Well, yeah, I was just wondering if you had already looked as a department at other examples of discipline matrices. I mean, I'd seen, you know, say like Madison's, it's public, or I think NYPD, maybe Washington. I'd looked at a couple different matrices, and you know, for example, in I think it was in Madison, you know, if you if I'm sorry, not if a police officer does commit a crime, you know, they're subjected automatically to 3 weeks of suspension, no pay, and then possible termination. And so that's already kind of laid out. And so I didn't know if the department already had those kind of pieces there that we could then talk about and look at and say, yeah, we agree with this. We think it's great to terminate someone who has had 4 DUIs. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know if
Yeah,
there's already that precedent.
I don't think that there's something like that already created. And I think I would know. So I don't think that we have anything like that created. It would be, you know, if you commit a crime, obviously that those, if it's a crime of integrity, well, that you got to get decertified anyway by the state. So no, I mean, we don't already have that. But yeah, I think the only agency in the state, and I could be wrong, that has one is Portland.
Okay.
And I got that one early last year, and I've been reviewing it, trying to look at it and see how I would kind of make it to fit our own deal. So I have reviewed them. We don't have one prepared now.
Okay.
Quick question.
Yeah.
What were your feelings about the matrix at City of Portland, and do you think it could be right-sized for us? And what do you think the pros and cons would be of that?
I'm not sure how Stephen Schubeck would want me to answer that, or if he would even want me to answer that in a public meeting. So I'm going to stay away from that one. Just because I'm not sure where Stephen would land on that. I don't want to get us sideways with negotiations.
All right, that's fair. Maybe we can, I mean, because we want to make good recommendations that I think we're all curious about your opinion. So maybe we can find another venue where we're able to have that conversation.
Sounds good.
So what do we want to do with 9 at this point?
9, I thought we struck the last sentence and approved.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're gonna leave it right there.
That was the direction I got, unless
Okay.
it's not. Unless it's not.
Well, and we're still kind of talking about it, and I didn't know if we wanted to leave it as just discipline decisions or if we wanted to make any kind of recommendations.
Do we want
I mean,
to?
that doesn't have to relate to a matrix, right? I mean, whether you had a matrix or not doesn't affect 9.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you.
That's my observation. I'm not telling you, I'm asking you.
No, I
Because
think, yeah, that was just a subset. The matrix is just a subset.
The only thing I would say is if we wanted to include language about the permanent body participating in the creation of a matrix or something like that. That's the only other thing I could think to edit that one if we wanted to.
Well, I think if the PD is not creating a matrix actively, then maybe it would be helpful if we did at least make a recommendation, the permanent body rather makes a recommendation on infractions that we would think would be worthy of termination. So I think as a community, it would be helpful to say specifically that we do want to be involved in determining what goes into that matrix.
I think we're all pretty close to this on this in terms of having consensus, but I'm interested. I'm wondering if maybe we should table the discipline matrix or that idea. Try to get through as many of these as possible,
Okay.
and then maybe revisit that with the last 10 minutes or so that we have.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Or just leave it as is. Okay. Number 10, address historic problem of Westland Police leadership accountability with city manager. Oh, this is what we were speaking about earlier. The city council to work together on policy, outlining clear expectations, performance measures, disciplinary guide for police chief, for which the city manager will be accountable to the city for enforcing. So this Chief Moon is what we were talking about earlier, about having some kind of transparency around the accountability between the city and police chief.
Yeah, I mean, the chief is an at-will employee, and so I think whatever the city manager says my working conditions are, I think that's the way they gotta go. So
I have a question in regards to the Westland City Charter. Can you share with me again that the city manager has a higher authority than the mayor?
I can't pull it up right now, but the city manager is the administrative head of the city. But the council and the mayor and council appoint one employee, and that's the city manager. So if you were looking at an org chart, the mayor and city council are the people that I report to. I don't know if that answers your
I
question.
think you're muted, Michael.
Oh, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
So am I reading number 10 incorrectly? This for which the city manager will be accountable to city for enforcing. So is that correct in regards to the charter, or or is that sort of backwards? I'm just trying to, if it's correct, it's correct. If it's not, it's not.
I think it's correct, Michael, because I read it as, the police chief answers to the city manager evaluates the police chief, and then also the city manager has to be then accountable for like the correct actions of the police chief to the city. Does that make sense? So the city makes sure that the city manager is enforcing the standards when evaluating the police chief.
Okay. Alrighty. So what if the city manager doesn't share with city council, mayor, or the citizens committee?
Right. So we're saying like there needs to be transparency, that there's appropriate oversight happening by the city manager of the police chief. And then the city manager turns around and then reports to council and mayor saying, you know, the city the city can be assured that the police chief is doing what the police chief is supposed to do in overseeing the department. And that has to like maybe happen on a yearly basis. Like, this is my evaluation of what the police chief is doing, and this is appropriate or not appropriate. And then like maybe in a forum where the citizens of the city could then watch and make sure in a meeting, in a public meeting, like, this evaluation took place, everything's legit or everything's not legit, and then we all have visibility on whether or not the city manager is approving or disapproving of what the police chief is doing.
Thank you.
And in the past, there wasn't that. That's the historic problem. Is that wasn't transparent.
I support this one.
I do too.
I support it.
And this is not subject to collective bargaining, so that's good.
Is this everyone agrees and I can hit approve? Michael, you as well?
Michael, are you okay with it?
Yes, I agree. Just as long as it complies to the city charter, and it does.
So it looks like number 12 is next.
Well, I guess one other question on 10, did we want to put forth that it also needed to be apparent to or transparent to the community right off, or is that going to then be the onus of the task force, the permanent body, that's overseeing the police, is making that transparent to the public? This is the point that Kathy was making, is that the whole chain of command needs to be transparent to the community. And with this, it's just a city council, mayor, and the citizen committee, but not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily address that. Then that committee would make that public knowledge that was occurring. Do we feel like that goes far enough?
I see what you're saying. Like, there needs to be a piece that mentions the permanent body and their access to this information. Is that what you're saying?
And making that very accessible, that information accessible to the community then. Because that city council is not necessarily like on the hook for relaying this information to the community. But I think the police oversight body would be should be on the hook for saying, yeah, this is legit, this is happening as it should be, and community can rest assured that there are evaluations taking place and that's transparent. And then the trust continues, is rebuilt, right? Because then the community knows that the process is working.
I agree with that.
So is there rewording to be done here, or?
I know Evan seems to be the wordsmith on these.
Sorry, I had to grab my phone because I'm going to be on the phone the rest of the meeting, so I kind of missed
Okay.
what you wanted to add, which sounded like it
I was just saying, like, you know, the piece of making sure the community is informed that this process is working. I don't know if the community is really detailed in this statement. The citizen committee is, but I just didn't know if we should, I mean, maybe we don't need to specify, but I think the police oversight body should also be making it transparent, like what disciplinary actions are happening if the evaluations are happening in the PD in general. And so that may be a separate piece altogether.
So I might have a little different feelings on this, which is, I think the way that it's worded, which is the evaluation would go to the committee, if that's pretty transparent. I don't know that I want the police chief's evaluation going out to the entire city and posted on the city website. I mean, it just kind of, it doesn't seem super fair to the police chief. What we might add, you know, it's okay if you guys disagree with me about that, that's fine. It just, the part I think is that it might be appropriate for the committee, since they're not writing the they're not writing the evaluation to be able to make comment about whether it agrees, disagrees, or has anything to add about the evaluation, and be able to do so publicly if they want to, as opposed to just having an evaluation posted all over the place. But I don't have strong feelings about this, so I would leave it to this one to the rest of you. I support it as it's written.
I don't really want the evaluation per se, like the details of it, at all public, more so that it is happening, that is public, in like maybe a going great or not going great kind of thing. But I absolutely agree to protect our police chief's specifics, that we shouldn't have that detailed evaluation being broadcast. But just the fact that it's happening and it's either approved or not approved, kind of or satisfactory or unsatisfactory, that can be
Pass, no pass type of thing.
yeah
Um,
pass fail.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Nicole, the very last two words on that, on number 10, are citizen committee. I don't know if it helps to change it to, permanent oversight board, just so that's a little more clear on who we're talking about.
That would be reasonable. Yeah, I was just making sure everyone felt like everyone was comfortable with just that level of transparency, just to the police oversight board, and that's it. I think that's reasonable, because then I think there needs to be a separate report altogether, that the overseeing board would say all these evaluations are happening in the. I mean, I think that would be good if we were overseeing that all the evaluations were happening in the police department, and these are the disciplinary actions that are happening, and not necessarily line by line. This officer got this officer got that, but just that we're tracking by officer if there's certain, if there's a trend of infractions happening, or compliments happening. This officer's doing great, getting all these smiley face letters. So anyway, okay, I think we can just leave it at that then, just as long as there's transparency.
So
Sorry.
not changing
Sorry.
anything.
Not
leaving it
changing
as is.
anything. And
Got
then
it.
we could, unless it's saying oversight committee, instead of citizen committee. I think that's a reasonable change that Christina
Does
offered up.
everybody else think that? I'm changing it to oversight committee.
Yes.
Okay, so
Okay, I'm
11.
going to scroll down now.
Okay. Mayor's clapping that we're moving on. Agreed. No. I'm glad you're here, Mayor.
Oh, yay.
Okay. Number 12, offer option of citizen liaison between complainant and the PD to address issue of citizens uncomfortable with police interactions and complaint process. I love this one. This is the ombudsman. This is one of my favorite recommendations. I give it a huge thumbs up. I give it 2 thumbs up. How do you all feel about it?
I support it.
Yes.
Okay, Evan, are you comfortable with the ombudsman? He might be on the phone. I can't see.
Yes.
Okay. Do we want to change the wording to say ombudsman, or just leave it as liaison? I like liaison because it's gender neutral. Okay.
That is good.
All right. Public access to collective bargaining negotiations. We got that one halfway.
Partially.
So moving on, I guess that gets struck because it's happening. We kind of got what we got. Do you want to change the wording on that for future?
Well, I mean, we got partial access, right? So
Do you feel like we have enough input on the contract language? I was listening to the listening session. What was it? Well, I guess the recording of the listening session, and it seemed like it would still be difficult to actually know what's going to come up in the conversation that's going to be had, that's going to be visible, and be prepared to make statements on that.
Right. I still have confusion over public versus private sessions. But I mean, I don't think it hurts to keep this in.
Okay. All right. Is everyone ready to approve 13?
Yes.
Okay, good. Evan, are you okay with 13? Okay. All right. 14, PD to implement early warning system for police misconduct for harm prevention. Now, just for clarity, is this harm prevention for the community or for like police harming the community, or is that's how I read that, right?
That's how I read it.
Okay. So this to me sounds like the discipline matrix again, at least partially.
Right. Like if X, Y, and Z happen, then some sort of alarm is triggered to.
Yeah, someone takes a break, gets investigated, whatever.
Right.
Yeah,
No,
it's a suspension.
I'm not, I think it's something else. I think that a lot of times these are called employee information systems. Ours is currently called Guardian Tracking. It's a system where we track everything that a police officer does, to include every time that he or she uses force, that gets into a pursuit, they get in trouble, they whatever. And so it's all tracked so that it'll raise a flag to us to pay attention to the employee if it trips
Right.
so many flags within a certain amount of time. So it's called early warning, so that we can intervene when we see an officer. Let's say they've had 3 uses of force in a year, and the whole rest of the departments had 0 or 1. That when he has his third, that trips the flag for us to go intervene and find out, hey, what's going on, right? And that's where you work with the employee, like, hey, what is going on? And sometimes they tell you, hey, I'm going through a divorce, or drinking too much, or whatever. And that we have prevented harm from the employee from having further harm, and harm to the community from letting somebody continue to slide down into making really, really bad decisions worse. And so.
And this is something you already use?
Yeah, our system is called Guardian Tracking, yeah.
And so is that a system that you either you purchased or you have access to? It's not something that you guys created.
We purchased it off the shelf, yeah. You can look it up. It's called Guardian Tracking. It's not, it's proprietary. And some of them are called, one of them was called EIS, Employee Information System. I can't think of it. One of them was called like Blue Book or something. It just keeps a running tab of all the things that are happening to the police officer, to include high risk incidents, deaths, baby death calls, stuff like that, to see if the employee needs help.
And have you witnessed this system like work effectively? Have you received little flags before, and then you look into them and are able to?
We use force so infrequently in West Linn that we have the flags. We get to set when the flags trip, and so we trip it at 1, right? Because we don't have very many of them. And so we intervene right off the bat. We haven't had to where like an employee is slipping down poor performance over a long time, and we tripped it. So we haven't found the employee that needs intervention, whether it be counseling or drug, or drinking or something like that. We haven't found that employee through the system yet. No.
Okay.
When did this get implemented?
I've been here 2.5 years. I think we had it about 2 years, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, it had to be, a lot of it had to be bargained, and so we went through a bunch of that too. Not bargained, but they had to look at we had to write a policy for it and all that kind of stuff.
And if someone makes an internal complaint against another officer, that tricks too, right?
All the officers' complaints, yeah.
Well, I think then this is already covered.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
One more quick question. because it just triggered a memory for me. I think, Chief Mahuna, you were going to provide us with a copy of the current complaint form.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, you can actually find it right online on our website. So I'm sorry.
That's okay. And I actually went online to try to find it, but I'm having a hard time.
Oh, geez. Well, that's not good to hear. I actually haven't gone to go look for it myself. I apologize.
That's okay.
But it's supposed to be on the police website, and it's supposed to be on the city website. So if it's not more prominently displayed, we'll get it more prominently displayed until the ombudsman or whatever system you guys set up goes live.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so can you scroll up, Jerry, to 15? Thanks. Transparency to include, oh, okay, so everyone
Can I
comfortable with
interrupt?
us striking that?
Yeah, tell me what to do on 14.
I think we strike it because it's already in progress.
I agree.
Michael and Evan, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Michael.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay, let's go move to 15.
All right, can we go back? Dylan, are you on the call still?
Still here.
Dylan, you're the website guy. Can you put that complaint form in a different spot or a more prominent spot?
Sure. Yeah, we can work on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Christina, for bringing that up again. 15, transparency to include public access to all audit reports, investigative reports, disciplinary decisions, litigation to facilitate public trust. So this is a bargaining issue for sure. I absolutely support having at least a yearly report that's visible to the public, so people know that disciplinary action is happening. But I think we'd have to bargain and protect identity where appropriate. Does anyone else have any comments or changes or? Do we want to make any comments on the frequency of reports that I think the police oversight body should be providing the community?
Sorry, say that one more time.
Well, I think the police oversight body should be providing, very easily comprehensible reports to the communities to make it really accessible to its members of varying educational backgrounds. Something that's easily digestible. So, and that I think it speaks to transparency of the process, right? So, so I didn't know if we wanted to make any comments about that frequency here, or let it go, and they can determine how frequently to report to the community the investigation of these issues.
These are reports that the oversight body creates. We want the public to have access to those. Or
I think that would make us more helpful to the public. And then I think we also want to have reports given to the body so they can see that investigations are happening appropriately at the internal level. So I think there's two levels of reports happening.
Right.
There's reports to the body, and then those reports are made more comprehensible, easily digestible for the community to improve transparency, right?
I definitely think reports that are created by the oversight body should be public. And then I also agree that other types of reports that come from the city side should be made available to the oversight body, not necessarily to the public, depending on what type of information is in them.
Right. So I'm looking at the wording and I'm wondering if it will stand as is, or if we need to parse out that there's two separate reports happening. There's another layer cake that we have.
No more cakes, please.
No more cake. We're done with the tiered cakes.
I think it should probably be clarified. Um,
So I guess maybe the wording on this is looking more at what the police oversight body has access to investigation wise that's occurring in the police department, like internally, and then also what if we're having an auditor currently auditing. We kind of already addressed this, having
Right.
access to reports real time, basically.
It might be good once we're through this list to then be able to go in and just maybe put some of these together that are like, um, just to make it a more cohesive
Yeah. Okay.
document. But for this one, I mean, it could stand alone if we're talking about public access to all of these reports that are created by the oversight body.
Which I don't think was addressed in that earlier statement that we would have access to ongoing investigations. Okay.
Right.
And I think the gist of this is, making sure that the public can see that investigations are being done and what the results of those investigations are. Right. So
can we just add a piece that these are transparency to include public access to all audit reports, investigative reports, disciplinary decisions, litigation to facilitate public trust.
do we want to say that that the oversight committee provides a report to the public? And let's spell out that that's the responsibility using this one, or do we want to just strike it because it kind of is already covered in the other statement?
Anyone else have an opinion?
We could probably add to the beginning because I think you guys are right. This doesn't read super clear. Something like the task force or the oversight board will produce a report outlining, let's say, the main points of audit reports, investigative reports, disciplinary decisions, and litigation. Or you could keep it as it is and add what we added before, which is to the extent they're able to by law. I mean, there's some things you can't just post without redacting a bunch of stuff on the city website. So
Right.
either direction would work for me.
Well, I definitely feel like in this body so far, we haven't covered what I think is the responsibility of the oversight board to provide this, information to the community of what's happening, to make sure that there's good transparency for the community. So I would love for there to be like an expectation laid out that there's going to be at least an annual report that's going out to the community to show that, what discipline is happening. So then the community can say, hey, like there's no discipline happening here. Like you guys need to be more accountable to us as a community. You know
Right.
what I mean?
I definitely agree that it would be good to include some language about the obligation of the board, the permanent board, to come out with an annual report. So maybe we just change it to that.
Okay. And maybe, so Jerry, can you scribe for us? Can you change it to say, instead of saying transparency to include public access to all audit reports, say transparency to include an annual report to the public? Or at minimum, an annual report, maybe?
Which one?
Let's say at minimum. Of all audit, so strike the public access. Okay, can we leave it like that? To be provided, I guess at the end, then to be, sorry, I'm not actually doing this myself. To be provided by the Oversight Committee.
Yes?
Does that look okay to people, or do we want to say, or auditor? Are we okay with
Be
saying?
back in about 3 minutes.
It looks fine.
You think it's fine?
Is that approved then by everybody?
I approve.
Okay. Thank you. So that's, with that, we don't have to bargain. This is bargainable. Okay, so 16, citizen committee to have input in hiring, promotion of PD staff, officer performance metrics. Okay, how do we feel about this? I don't want to be too overreaching, but I think it is important to make sure that the public has a way to make sure, you know, like our standards are at a certain level, and making sure that our applicants are, you know, college educated, or at least have some college coursework. But again, this is definitely a bargaining issue.
So a little bit of this is being done already because I got to sit in and participate on some interviews at the police department earlier this week.
Right. Yeah.
And that was a really great experience, and I think that should be encouraged and continued.
Okay. So should we say to have a presence on the interview board? In the language here? Chief, do you think that would be fair to have a continued presence from the committee? It would, you know, if the PE would be open to that? As civilian
Oh,
members?
yeah, we're totally open to that. We're doing that now.
All right, great. So do we need to strike it or keep it? Or I think we can keep the language that it continues to make sure it keeps
Oh,
continuing.
absolutely. Yeah, as long as I'm here, we're continuing that. It's a good time.
Okay, great.
So I'll just put
So approved.
approved.
I have a question in regards to that. The question I have is a statement: input in hiring. That's sort of those three words is sort of confusing to me. I mean, it's different than having the city manager ask if you want to sit on a panel, but for the naked eye just viewing it, it would mean to me that if you are on this committee, you have an input, and I don't think that's correct.
It might help to clarify. So when you're on the panel, my experience was that for every applicant, I was given a document with a scale number rating system. So I was allowed to give each applicant a score, and then those are provided to the HR director. And they take those scores into account when they're making their decision. Is that what you mean?
No. What I mean is that as a city, as a citizens committee, a scoring on it to an applicant is not the same as having an input into hiring. So what that means is your vote is, what you're saying is your scoring was the same scoring that a sergeant at the police department had, or somebody else at a level higher that was hiring someone. So I I mean, from the city manager stating that, you know, the members of this oversight committee will have, you know, an opportunity to sit on um, um, motion, a hiring or something like that is different than having input. I guess I see the word input just differently. But I mean, that's Jerry's question. Jerry, what do you think? I mean, you want this committee to be part of the, you know, your forever deal or not?
What's the exact question?
16. Do you agree with 16 or not?
Um, yes, I understand it. I mean, during the time that I've been here, Peter and I have had citizens on the panels who have provided input in hiring.
I think what Michael is asking, and clarify, and correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, is well, being on a panel is one thing, but then I think as Michael's saying, are we giving the citizens group the authority to pick our person? And I would say, yes, for me, I want to hire who I want to hire, and I want them to go through the process with the citizen input. But at the end, I want it to be my decision. Um, if I'm hiring a brand new person, right? If we're hiring a captain or a chief or something, that's y'all's decision. But that's as the person who's going to supervise this person, I want to be able to pick them. I do want citizen input throughout the process, but I want to ultimately be the one to pick.
I agree.
Okay.
So what role do those scores play? Because everyone on the panel was using the same scoring system. It wasn't just me. So, you know, the HR director was using that scoring system as well, and so were the other officers that were on the panel. So how do those scores play into your decision-making process?
So if you were to come back to next week's longer ones, they would provide me with a list of people, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they kind of break out usually. And then from those, I invite them to a Chiefs interview, and then we have the talk, and then it's, you know, I basically hire them in the order that the citizens have, not the citizens, that hiring panel has kind of scored them to me. Unless there's something that jumps out like, oh my God, you know, we didn't know about this. We send them off in the background, and then sometimes background will weed somebody out, or the number one person accepts the job doing something else. And so now we're, you know, our number 2 becomes number 1, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, that was the impression I got as well.
Hi, I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second and say thank you so much. I have to bounce to another meeting, but I am just so grateful. Like, this conversation is so amazing, and you guys are doing great work, and I'm so grateful for all of you. So, please feel free to reach out to me at any time, and I'm just so grateful to see that we're moving forward on this and all of your investment into it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for being here. Do we feel like there's enough language around the officer performance metrics, or I love that we have a presence in the hiring process, but how about, you know, the evaluation on an annual basis? I mean, is that already happening as well, Chief Mahuna?
No, we don't have citizen input into the performance metrics currently on the form that we use.
And then do we feel like there's a space that we could participate in changing the language to really focus on like the importance of promoting like a guardianship culture in the mission statement? I feel like that would play into this into this point, because it's kind of like that's our input in hiring, and then also of crafting a culture of that's moving us towards a guardianship of our community as opposed to like the warrior soldier type. Not that soldiers are bad, but you know what I mean. Culture.
Right.
So can we say the citizen committee would have input in hiring and in developing the mission statement of the PD, or revisiting the mission statement of the PD?
We have
I
a
would
point
agree
that
with.
talks about guardianship versus warrior.
Sorry, I missed the first part of your sentence, Evan.
I thought we had a point in here that talked about guardianship. Do we not?
Well, I mean, the Obama task force certainly did. That was the first pillar. But I think, it was in the cowl as well. So I guess that subsumes this. Yeah. So
Or maybe that's where it was.
yeah.
Because I couldn't agree more with, building a culture of guardianship.
So I guess if there's an opportunity that the citizens could also participate, Chief, if the department's looking at revisiting its mission statement on any kind of regular basis, if we could also have citizens maybe there to help with the verbiage, because I think we want to attract the right person for the job, and make sure that we're also attracting a diverse community of officers and improving diversity and also that guardianship. So if we could be involved in hiring and making sure the language that goes out with those calls for applications, that we're calling the right applicant.
You're talking about the job announcement when we post it.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So I think do we feel like we can approve this as is? 16?
For me.
Okay.
Evan,
I don't see the reason for it.
Continues, I guess. You're saying you don't see the reason for it because it's already happening to a degree. The officer performance isn't happening yet.
Yeah, because I think it should be available to all citizens of West Linn. I don't think it should be just placed you're not on that committee. You can't have an input in you can't have an input in, not, I'm trying to, the input in not just direct hiring or direct promotion of West Linn Police Department staff. It's too broad, and it's too if you're on that committee, I don't believe, as Chief Mahoney said, that you should have an input. I mean, you can sit on a panel and give a score, but you better believe you don't have a lot of input. I mean, you just sat there and did the graph, but it's not the same accepting this entire number 16. The citizens committee does not have a say in the promotion, because promotion is based upon merit. City committee does not have a say in staff, because it could be considered a part of of tenure. Um, it, it I mean, if it's one or the other, uh, the chief is going to hire who he believes is going to be right for the city and who's going to work for him. I still don't see how we can continue 16. It doesn't make, as is written, it won't work.
Why I like 16 is that although we are extremely fortunate now to have Chief Mahuna with us. I feel like it's a protective layer if we do not have someone. I don't know. I mean, I feel like we're very blessed to be working with Chief Mahuna right now. You know what I mean? But I'm thinking back, like in the days before Chief Mahuna, it would have been nice maybe to have another layer of someone sniffing out and getting a sense for, does this candidate maybe have some implicit bias issues? And I feel like that is where a citizen who might be able to kind of sniff that stuff out might be helpful and be like, oh, I have reservations about this person potentially because XYZ. I just feel like it's another protective layer, and that's why I would like to keep it in there. I mean, I know it's happening, it's working right now, but I just want there to be like a precedent that it continues on. And so if that's involved, if this goes into a charter or an ordinance, I think this would be a powerful thing to make sure that there's members of the community that could also be involved in the hiring. I mean, I feel like you're right. Right now, Chief Mahuna's he's working very proactively to hire the right people for our community. I want that continued input from citizens.
Okay,
What
but
if
so
you take,
what's the difference in saying having a seat versus having an input?
like changing the word input to participation?
Yeah, some participation or a seat or something that states that they'll be on that panel.
I'd be very comfortable with that. I mean,
I'm comfortable with that, Michael.
Evan, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Michael.
Great. Okay. Can we change that, Jerry?
I missed that one part. So what are
So
we
it'll
changing?
be a seat on the panel, have, a seat on the panel, on the hiring and interviewing panel.
Is that what,
Instead of input. So it's, more specifying that there's a permanent seat for a citizen.
so is it good now? Citizen to have a seat on the interviewing
guess-
panel and hiring promotion. Okay.
I guess it would be more of like a representative from the police oversight body. We'll have a seat on the interviewing panel.
Does it have to be somebody from the panel, or can it be just any citizen from
I
the?
guess it could be
I
any
think Michael was
citizen.
speaking earlier about wanting to, not limited to
Yeah,
just,
okay. Perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Citizen.
Yeah, I might suggest we have it be a person from the panel, and nothing precludes the city from adding additional citizens. So nothing in what we're proposing would prohibit other citizens from participating. It's just that this committee, if council commits it, is going to have a very narrow charge. It seems like it should be, it makes sense for it to be having input into hiring and having a seat. I think that's actually a really good idea that Michael had.
Okay.
That's true. And it could be one of each.
Would you be open to that, Chief? I mean, do you think that would be reasonable? To
yeah, I mean, for like Christina was just on a CSO once, you start putting 5, 6 people on the panel. That's kind of overwhelming for a 21-year-old person coming in to be a CSO. But I certainly, I think,
They were nervous.
I think certainly for all promotions, like, or so sergeants, captains, and above, I have as many as you want. I guess those are way more. I don't want to say important. That's going to sound terrible. Way more weighted positions for sure, where you could have a 5, 6, 7 person panel for something like that.
Okay. Okay, well, I think this measure looks good now.
Is that approved?
Yes.
Yes.
Evan, did you hear it? Approved?
Sorry, I was talking to myself on mute there.
Oh, I wrote citizen committee to have a seat on the interviewing panel in hiring promotion of WLPD staff, officer performance metrics.
Yeah, looks good.
Perfect.
Okay, next up, we'd recommend regular police training to include de-escalation, implicit bias training, procedural justice training, conflict resolution, mental illness training, drug addiction, and stress management for our PD. I love all of the above. And this is definitely a bargaining issue.
Yes.
Yes, for me.
Yes, for me.
Okay, do we want to make any recommendations on specific hours that would need to be? I know the Cowell document had recommended about 40 hours per year for the de-escalation and implicit bias training each. I don't know if we want to state how many hours. Plus, we need to evaluate. I mean, maybe Chief could talk about how many hours right now are required for the current training for de-escalation bias.
I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I can't tell you what hours are, how many it is. I can tell you that 40 hours for something like that for each officer would be an incredible strain on our department. We only have, 18 officers. And so if they're going to be gone to school for a week, that becomes very expensive very fast. But all of these training things, some of them were state mandated. Some of them we're already doing that. And I don't know if we told this group or not, but our commitment is to put our training calendar for the next 2 years on our webpage, so everybody can see what training, to include all state mandated training, right, firearms, defense tactics, driving, stuff like that. And whether or not it's mandatory for the whole department to do it, or if it was training that just a few people went off and did, so everybody can see kind of what's going on there. So we don't have to go to the state website and look up each officer to see what they did that year. Weston will just tell you this is what we did for the upcoming 2 years. And as of course, we don't have hard dates for what we're going to do 2 years from now, but as the dates come in for training, we update our website so that everybody knows, oh, they're doing de-escalation training, we're doing implicit bias training, blah, blah, blah.
But I think, all of these specifically, are they all like specifically these issues? Is everyone in the department, even all the way up to you, is everyone doing this type of training already?
Yeah, we don't do drug addiction training yearly, certainly. That'll be wrapped up probably in some kind of an officer wellness training that we provide. We want to do those yearly. We brought in a resiliency piece this last year for our people. So stress management will be tied up into that. When you talk about mental illness, I'm assuming you're talking about like recognizing it or some kind of a critical incident piece. That's super challenging right now because nobody did that during COVID. Clackamas County they're the ones who do it for us, and they fell behind because they didn't do it for the whole year. And so now they're trying to just get their people caught up, and they're not offering that. I've reached out to Portland to see if they could do it. They don't have the bandwidth to be able to provide that for all of our people. And I'm going to ask the DOJ to provide it. If we can't get it done, I hate to not meet one of your metrics because I can't find somebody to provide CIT training. You know what I mean? But procedural justice, implicit bias, those are de-escalation. Those are going to be things that we're going to hit yearly, and you'll be able to see it on our website.
And just roughly estimating if it's possible. I mean, what do you think the officers do spend, like, say, taking de-escalation as one of the issues or implicit bias? Like, do you feel like in general that's kind of a 1 hour a year training thing, or is it something that's more like 10, 12 hours a year right now? Is there any way to estimate, or is that an unfair question?
It's not an unfair question at all. I think it's fair to say they'd probably get a day of each per year. And all of those things, de-escalation. Now, I'm also asking the DOJ I will be asking the DOJ for de-escalation training. So I don't even know what that looks like yet. But I'm assuming probably 8 to 10 hours a year would be reasonable for a department my size. Otherwise, if you put too many training hours on these deals, and you guys, I'm not trying to sway you in any way or whatever. I'm just trying to give you the facts. If you put, we gotta do 40 hours of each one of these things, our guys would always be in training and our training budget would be through the roof, right? So, because I still gotta put people on the street. And so, probably a day for each of those things. And then the mental illness, drug addiction, stress management would all be brought into one,
Okay.
like an 8-10 hour day kind of a deal.
Do you how do you guys feel about this as it stands and not having any kind of recommendations? I really like what the chief had to say about making that training calendar transparent so we citizens can see what's happening. Do we want to have
Maybe like a yearly review of our training, and then you guys provide or the oversight, and every year, and maybe they throw out, hey, this happened this last year, and so can you guys get extra training on this? One of those deals.
And Chair, I think that like say, well, if we sit on there's a number of training sessions online that's required. As a commissioner, I have to do harassment and those types of things. But at the police department, Chief, can you tell me, aren't a number of your officers specialists in specific a specialist? There's a specialist in mental health. There's a specialist that deals with um, de-escalation. And so wouldn't some officers have more of this training than others? Because I know they're not all the same.
Oh, for sure, for sure. De-escalation will be wrapped up more. Our people who are teaching patrol tactics, defensive tactics, that kind of stuff would have more of that, simply because when they go to their instructor schools, they get part of that too. And then when they come back and have to teach us that, we get less of it, sure. For the mental illness stuff, that we have some officers that we've hired who have got that from their previous departments. The ones that were born and raised in our department don't have that, which is why I'm trying to go find it. So it's a mishmash of what we got and how long they've been cops, right? I've been over 28 years, so I got a ton of that, but I got most of it from my last department. So we're just trying to bring it all for everybody.
Chair, I'm in agreement with the 17, but how can we tier it in regards to the um, number of years served and understanding all these things? Or are we?
I mean, I'm looking at the language and I'm thinking it needs to have, space for being able to make recommendations for the training. So continued oversight of what training is being done, right? Which Chief is saying is going to be very transparent, which is great. And then also if we can make recommendations, hey, we think that there needs to be more time put into mental illness or into how to de-escalate with our homeless population if we get home, like if that increases. So I think if we could maybe strengthen it to say that we would have the ability to make recommendations to the city or to the PD if we want to see more training emphasis in any of these categories.
I agree. I agree.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Me too.
All right. So wordsmithing. So the police oversight body. Jerry, can you scribe for us?
Yeah,
This will be at the
this
beginning.
is 17.
Yeah. So the regular police training is already happening, but just if we could, so strike the regular police training and just say police oversight body.
Wait, I can't go that fast.
Sorry.
Okay.
I know I'm just looking at the time and I'm like, we're running out of time again. To have oversight and ability to make recommendation on training.
Say that again. Oversight and
Make recommendations I guess it would be to both the PD and the city I'm just trying to figure out who would actually implement, like, if we felt it was very important, maybe just to the city, because then the city would have to find the budget to increase access to the training, right? So, or would the PD have to set aside the budget? I'm trying to figure out where the money's coming from for the extra training that would need to happen. And then that would be the body we'd be making the recommendation to.
I would like it to come out of the parks budget, but I think it'd probably come out of my budget.
But the council, votes on the budget. So I want to get back to this. I was a little confused. So
Police
tell me what to
Oversight
write.
have oversight make recommendations to the PD and council. On what training emphasis?
But just regarding training.
Okay.
And then strike the rest?
I would.
Yes? I just can't hear very well. Sorry.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So considering our time, do we have the capacity to have another one of these meetings in the next week before bargaining, or is that not possible?
I mean, I'm happy to meet. Okay, where are we at with our recommendation? What do you have, like 4 more points, or there's the
But so there's 17. We're on 17. There's 27, but a couple of them have been removed. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like 8 left, if I counted correct.
Okay. So 18 was one that I had brought, that the harm reduction committee. And I think we kind of decided in our earlier discussion that we weren't at the cahoots place yet, the place for cahoots in our community. It's not quite right sized for our community. I do feel like it would be wonderful to have a de-escalation specialist on the PD that could be separate from the PD eventually. How do you guys feel about this? Do you feel like we should look at a couple more of these, or do you want to call the meeting to a close?
I'm open to keep going, or I'm open to meeting again. I'm just concerned that we won't have a document ready by the time
In 3 minutes?
by the time the next bargaining session happens.
You guys want to go another 15 minutes and see how we do?
I'm fine with that. Is everyone, I know we have a lot of guests here.
Michael, are you okay to keep going?
Yes.
I can stay no later than 6:15.
Okay. All right, let's keep going. Do you guys want to comment on 18 now, or do you want to table that for the permanent body to deal with?
Yeah,
For the
Chad's
sake
pretty
of-
big.
For the sake of time, why don't we table it for now?
Okay, I'm fine with that. Evan? Okay, all right, Michael, I think Michael agreed, right? So.
Yeah.
City of West Linn requiring a college level education and coursework for the applicants. I approved this.
How often does that happen currently? Would that be like a really huge shift, or is it already happening in the applicants that you received?
Some college, probably half. And that's total guess. And I'm just trying to look at, yeah, I mean, the impact, of course, is less applicants because not, right? And so, and I think nationally they went away from that because traditionally there's people of color don't have access to college, and so we were already kind of thinning the applicant pool for people of color by requiring 4-year degrees or something like that. So a lot of departments across the country went away from that, so they would increase their applicant pool. Not a lot of people applying for the job these days for a variety of reasons. Certainly not a lot of people applying for the job in West Linn for a variety of reasons. And so, yeah, you end up with a very, very small applicant pool if you start throwing in high college degrees, high college requirements. But,
I think this statement more says college level education, but not necessarily a bachelor's or.
Not necessarily completion.
Yeah, I mean, just coursework in criminal law, maybe, but not necessarily a full degree in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I read it. Did you read it as a? Did the other members read it as a bachelor's?
I think I just assumed it was that, but I can see from reading it now that that was just an assumption I made off of
You
reading.
just add the word some instead of in front of college.
Okay.
And you could also add or the equivalent afterwards. I mean, if we want to leave it to the discretion of human resources or the chief to say, this person didn't go to college, but they went to trade school or they had some other equivalent post-secondary education that, they think is similar. I'm okay with leaving that kind of discretion for the reasons the chief stated.
Absolutely, yeah.
I agree.
So where is military in this mix?
I would say the equivalent because that's life experience. So.
Okay, so being in the military, say for instance, you're a military police, but you don't have a college degree, is that equivalent of?
Yeah.
So do you want to put? I mean, when you say college, you sort of exclude military training. So would you put?
Yeah, I mean, I see, at least I read the equivalent as, like Evan said, trade school, or I would originally, or I mean, I would off the bat just think that's more life experience, and I would put prior service members in the equivalent category. Do you think we need to specify prior military service?
I'm not too excited about having military people anyway, but it's.
Hey.
But if you want to look at, as the chief said, historically, we pretty much brought down the type of educated officers due to the fact that we could not find people that were willing to take the job, and so we're just now sort of trying to creep back up. So I mean, West Linn should be a place where we have 4-year education, and again, that would be up to the chief, or not only 4 years, but in regards to their prior police work. See, you might have a person that's already an officer that doesn't have a college degree, and both of us know people like that. So, I mean, what do you do? But again, this is a recommendation, so.
Well, I think the further recommendation says further promotion shall be based on officers' post-secondary coursework in related field. And we had talked about, or maybe the Cal document talked about this, and I think this would be great, encouraging, maybe offering tuition assistance to people who are trying to further their education in our police force, who are trying to further their education. I think that if that's not in here, we need to put that in there. I guess the Cal document, if it already has that, I think we should be absolutely encouraging our officers to pursue higher education in their field.
Yeah, I think that we could just start off by making that the edit to say require some college level education or relevant I can't remember the words that Evan used, but relevant experience or
They're equivalent.
yeah, equivalent experience.
Okay. And then the tail end, it says in addition, board approved and evidence-based continuing education courses shall be required for renewal of officer certification every blank years. So is this our board approving or the police oversight board approved? I wasn't sure which board that was referring to.
I don't know.
I'm not sure what officer certification means either. Like once they get certified by the state, they're certified. So
Okay. So do we just strike that if we don't really have a firm concept of what it means?
Yeah, I'm not sure if maybe the task force member that originally submitted this is no longer with us, so
Okay.
I don't want to make assumptions.
Yeah. Yeah. I would feel more comfortable striking that because I don't really understand it.
Tell me what to strike.
The last sentence, starting with in addition.
And then does any verbiage need to change for that sentence? Further promotion shall be based on officers' post-secondary coursework in related field.
Yeah, I think it's too limiting. I would just take that out.
Okay. Like the rest of the wording on that? Ready to vote on it or I just want to double check this.
Well, I'm good with it.
I'm good with it.
Okay. All right, good. Number 20, for future oversight committee should be able to formally file complaints, grievances, and vote of no confidence in against city leadership and the staff. When it's not responsive to proposals or decisions
This
made
one's
by the
a bit thorny.
Yeah.
Leave that for the next meeting.
Just really quickly, I don't know practically how we would file a grievance and what the process would be. I think any of us as public citizens could file complaints. I'm just talking as if we're all on the board right now, but and a vote of no confidence doesn't have to be a formal thing. The board could just do that on its own. It doesn't need council's permission to make a public statement.
Right.
But I do like the idea that they could admonish the city. I worry about it being used irresponsibly or like feeling like it's the main thrust of what the committee does. So I'm okay with tabling that, like Michael said.
Okay.
I agree. Anything we come back and make it about, the oversight board will issue statements, as needed, something like that.
Okay. Let's move on to 21. Future oversight committee should be involved in the hiring and screening process with the city manager and or PD chief where the PD staff and leadership. We already had that, so we can strike it.
Yeah, this feels like we went through this one, right?
This, yep. 22, to ensure no bias occurs. We already talked about this already as well. Increase diversity of the group. Oversight committee member application form should be reviewed and evaluated with the predetermined selection criteria. We said we're going to strike that, right? In the
Right.
with the rating. Yeah. So we already had our
Sorry, which part am I striking on 22?
all of it because we talked about it in 3.
All right. Whoops.
We only have you scribing for like 6 more minutes, Jerry. We gotta move.
We gotta get through this.
Because I don't want to screen share and scribe. So we're abusing you right now. Okay. Three-tiered cake. No, we're done.
No. 24.
24. Committee recommending open, transparent collective bargaining. Done. Strike. We're done.
Yeah, we had that.
Just to be clear, I do feel like this did come up previously, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's already happening, right? I thought we said it.
Yeah.
The second
Okay.
sentence though is a little bit different.
Okay. So committee recommending the city bargaining team engage with the task force regarding proposals and the strategy for achieving community centered reforms recommended by task force. So we had talked about this in the previous statement in that we wanted to be able to like make our voice heard. And we talked about how that's actually happening or not going to be very easy to have happening in the every other meeting that's going to be open.
I would like to. We can strike the first sentence, but I support the second, and I would.
I agree, especially moving forward. Like, some of this stuff is maybe not in time for this year. Maybe it is, but for sure we're moving forward.
Okay, and then if we could quickly talk about what that would look like if the city bargaining team would have like an open meeting with the task force.
If we're going to talk
about
bargaining
that.
strategy, it's going to be an executive session.
Okay.
The city's not going to want to have a public meeting where it lays out its bargaining strategy.
Okay.
But they can have an executive session with the permanent body.
That's right.
Okay. So maybe we strike the first sentence and then say, maybe we don't even have to say specifically why, because
I don't think you have to say anything. I think it's just functionally that's how it's going to have to work.
It's implied. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I approve of that change then
So-
to specify.
I approve 24.
Okay, so
Approve.
Just so you know, there's a missing, the line right above needs to be unlined.
Thank you. Okay.
Further, the committee recommends.
Well, it says, yeah, okay, right. So the city bargaining team was going to engage with the task force. The committee is recommending. that,
Thanks,
yeah.
Mary.
it's too much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm here for you.
Amen.
I'm glad you're still with us.
She has amazing endurance. Okay.
One more.
We can do it. 3 minutes.
I can stay if we can finish this.
Oh, thank
I'll get
you.
yelled at a little bit,
Ouch.
but this is worth it.
We all get yelled at sometimes.
I got it last night. Okay, so overall,
It-
so
it's-
oversight committee must function
Yeah,
highly
who
professional.
who did who recommended 27? It's really good.
It is. I think it just seems like Lonnie. I got the feeling it was Lonnie. I didn't know who did it though.
I was gonna guess Debbie.
Debbie? Okay. Yeah, it could be Debbie.
I don't know.
I don't know how to get all of this on the same screen, so
Yeah, I'm looking through it.
I'm going to just scroll down and we'll miss that first paragraph.
Do we want to read these out loud? I don't know.
Yeah, I was
Evan?
just trying to figure out how to digest it. So okay, I'll say, so A, the internal affairs professional standards, investigative capability and integrity must be strengthened. Contracting out this work to another expert or agency would be a start in returning integrity to internal affairs investigations, and the body that you create to oversee the integrity must be able to rely on the internal investigations that are conducted of all manner of alleged misconduct, from simple service complaints to criminal investigations. So should we tackle this first? So we talked about contracting this out versus having our own auditor, right? This is the meat of the oversight function, right? So do we approve of this being either contracted out or hired directly by West Linn? Is that what we're supposed to be addressing here? That's what I feel like we should be addressing this at this point. I don't know if I feel like we should contract out to a totally separate entity all the time, but
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Nicole. Did you say we should contract out or should not?
well, I mean, I personally feel like it would be nice to hire someone to our city to be looking at our integrity of our
I agree.
internal affairs.
So I support all of this. I just wrote it all. I mean, I read the first part to say, hey, in the interim, until we onboard someone, you know, that if needed, you could contract,
Okay.
you know, to fill the need.
That makes sense.
Okay. I approve of that notion. Do we want to like separate this out, or do we just want to keep going?
Let's keep going and then we'll.
The city manager needs bandwidth access and tools to oversee the police department. It's consistently been the city manager has relied on the command staff, and in particular the chief, as their source of information for all manner of concerns about the police department, including allegations of misconduct. So the bandwidth, I think, is the oversight department as well, right? So there's another entity that's looking at the discipline and the complaints. So that's kind of implicit in the whole oversight body and the auditor. C, are we ready to go to C?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, city council needs to be empowered to oversee, review, and confront issues with regard to allegations of racism, gross incompetence, and corruption in the police department. Perhaps an annual analysis by the OIR group is in order to make sure the correct progress is being made. So we'd made comment about this before, like having another kind of a check-in with OIR, you know, to see where we've come. Do we want to put that in writing and say, like, in 1 year we'll revisit with the OIR and make sure we're all on this, you know, moving along, the progress is being made? Or do we not want to have that external check by the OIR? How do you guys feel about that?
I think it would be great to at least have one follow up so that, you know, the just to give the community more confidence that things are moving in the right direction.
Okay.
So it sounds like strike perhaps,
And
then just put an annual analysis by the OIR group, like,
well,
shall be
that would be a
performed.
recurring annual analysis. Do you want to do that, or?
Yeah, I see exactly what you mean.
And Evan, was that a thumbs up? You want a recurring annual analysis by that same OIR group, or just an annual?
However you word that's great.
Okay.
I think it works either way.
Okay.
Sorry, so we're saying an annual analysis by the OIR group shall be conducted? Is that generally it?
I think
It's more concise.
Yeah.
And then to make sure that the correct progress is being made.
Okay.
Leave that? Okay.
I like that. That's more accountability, more better. Okay, and D, if there is to be an oversight committee, it should be focused on ensuring the police department functions, that the police department functions should be I'm reading this wrong. All right. All right, one more time. Just to make sure the oversight committee should be focused on ensuring the police department functions are functioning competently and ethically. I agree. That's what they're there for. Yes.
I mean, is there an edit here to be made? Just
I think maybe, I don't know if my brain just like melted out of my ear.
I think we should, in the very last two lines, delete that should be occurring are occurring. And leave it as functions competently and ethically.
That works.
And also take out if there is to be.
There is, right?
Yeah. We won't take no for an answer, Michael.
That's right.
So an oversight committee
Should be focused on.
Yeah. should be focused on ensuring the police department functions competently and ethically.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for cleaning that up.
Approved by everyone?
Can you...
Approved.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to bake you guys all a huge 3-tiered cake when this is all over.
You better make it 2. No one wants a 3rd tier. No, just kidding. Yeah, that was
Vanilla.
great.
Any left?
Well, lots of flavors.
Is that the last one?
Yes.
That's it.
I actually have one I want to add.
What is it?
It's going to be really short.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be something like this. I don't know who's in command of the cursor there.
Jerry.
It'd say, in light of all of the above, the city undertakes a collective bargaining strategy to make Westland Police very competitively paid relative to comparable sized police departments. I just think if we're asking a lot of our officers, we're going to hold them to a higher ethical standard with more oversight, and if applicants perceive this as anti-police, then it's going to create problems for us to hire the people we want to hire, when that's not really what this is. So I want to have an underpinning on here that gives the chief and the city manager the ability to hire highly competent officers, knowing that, yeah, we're asking you all these things of you, assuming the council passes them, but you're going to be compensated appropriately, because we're looking for the most ethical police in Oregon to be part of our department.
I think that's a great statement to add. That's well worth the extra time, Evan, because we are asking a lot of these officers.
Agreed.
And I happen to know we have a lot of bark chips to sell, so we can make some money. Jerry, we have a couple $1 million worth of bark chips to sell in this city.
If hog fuel was a lucrative commodity, it would make life easier.
No,
so this is approved. Is that accurate?
Approved.
Okay. So I'm gonna take this and bring it to council and the city attorney and get back to the task force, like as outlined in the sort of task force charter, and do that as next steps and be in touch with the task force.
Can we receive a copy of this new document in the interim?
Yeah, of course.
And then can we post it on the website? Like where the meeting is eventually going to stream. So it's real obvious.
Yeah, and I'll talk to Dylan and Kathy about being sure that Dylan and Kathy Molesky about making sure that all of these documents are available and accessible.
Okay.
Because now actually this document, which was originally titled, the proposals that were outstanding, now actually needs to be added to the other document, which was the proposals that we already passed.
Yeah. Like all collated and easy to read for the citizens.
Right. So I don't know whose job that will be.
That'll be ours.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And as far as the collective bargaining discussion, do you feel like, Jerry, that there is adequate information here to go off of in engaging?
I'll get it to them. I'm not actively. I'll send it to our team there. I don't know what else that could be added that isn't already here.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, it does. I mean,
it's in the hands. It will get in the hands of the people it needs to.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
So are we meeting again?
So why don't I bring this to Stephen Schuback, City Council, and say that we have all all the recommendations, or at least the first set of recommendations, this set of recommendations, and await to hear what their response is and get in touch with the task force? Is that, I don't know exactly what the next steps are. I'm going to
Right.
give it to them and they will instruct me.
Okay, and then
Yeah,
I
it
think
sounds like we're waiting for council's response to this,
Right.
and then we can talk if we need to meet again. I mean,
Okay.
okay. So if we don't hear from council in a certain amount of time, can I contact you, Jerry, to have us convene a meeting to kind of check in?
Yeah, of course. You'll hear from us next week. We have a council meeting on the 12th.
Perfect. Okay. All right.
This isn't on the agenda, but I mean, obviously it'll get talked about. Councilor Baumgartner was here for most, if not all of the meeting. Councilor Relia was here, Jules was here. So this is on everyone's radar, and we'll be sure that we get in touch. Great work, man.
Thanks for staying late.
It feels like
Thank you.
like college, right? Like, like the Google Doc that we're all editing together, right?
Great. All
Yeah,
right,
this is
thank
great.
you.
So I will be in touch with next steps, and I'll save this. You probably won't get it until tomorrow or next week, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
Dylan,
you.
Dylan, are you still here?
Well, here, yeah, you just need to hit stop record and then
Okay.
leave the meeting. Yep.
All right. Well, bye, everybody.
All right, good night,
Thanks,
folks.
everyone. Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks.
Thank you, Evan and Michael, especially.
Thanks.
Great job,
Christy.
everybody.
Good night.
All
Night.
right, good night.
Dylan, I'm hitting stop.
All right, good.
Okay. Is that it?
There it goes. Yeah, I think you should just be able to leave the meeting and it'll end off YouTube.
All right. I didn't mean to keep you, but that I'm really glad we finished.
No problem. Have a good
Okay.
night.